Why did you make that decision to not self-destruct?
The short answer is through experience. I was in an accident. I had drank. I was in the hospital. I was handcuffed to a bed. I had almost died. Do you want this to be your identity, or do you want to change? Because the world doesn't care about your experience. I specialize in helping people at a crossroads in their life and identifying why they're doing what they're doing and changing that and making better decisions.
Yeah, making a different decision.
Yeah.
At some point, we have to say we are not victims of our past, right? We can't let our past hold our future hostage.
Right.
All right, welcome back to another edition of the Big Table Podcast. I'm Coach Micheal Burt here at the Level 10 Studios at the Greatness Factory. And the Big Table is highly enjoyable, it's highly profitable, it's highly meaningful. There are 3 returns on the Big Table: return on your energy, return on your investment, and return on your objectives. I got a very special guest here with me today who came all the way from Scottsdale, Arizona.
That's right.
Rudy Montejo.
Correct.
Boom.
We got it.
We've been practicing his last name, but I just spent 3 hours with Rudy, and we did a 1-to-1 today. And did you enjoy that?
I enjoyed it very much. Yeah.
Well, you're on camera, so I need you to say it's life changing.
It was life changing. I mean, one piece of information out there can, dramatically alter the trajectory of your plan or what you conceivably thought. It reshapes it into what's possible. So
tell me, I really enjoyed getting to know you today, and you got a very, very strong skill set, right? Where did that skill set come from? Because you're in the crossroads business of helping people at really crossroads of their life, and we believe that at some point in everyone's life they're going to go through a crossroads,
and not just one, multiple.
Yes,
and the short answer is through experience.
Okay,
so. The transition point for me actually wanting to get into personal development and help myself started out, I was in an accident. I had drank. I was in the hospital. I was handcuffed to a bed.
Wow.
I had almost died the night before I got intubated. I had stopped breathing. They brought me back to life, took me up to the ER. My parents are in one corner. There's a nurse right in front of me and a cop over here.
Okay.
And the nurse basically says, you have 2 options. You can go to jail and you can keep drinking, or you can go get sober and get treatment. So at that point, that was not my first crossroads, but probably the most influential.
Yeah.
And from that point forward, I started deep diving into personal development, changing my life, biohacking, all these things that I can do to try and be a better person than me. And that repeated throughout life. It repeated when I had my kids, when I separated from my kid's mom, when I lost the job, when I got a job. So just really getting through these crossroads and pivotal moments without self-destructing, and turning this, traumatic experience into a moment of triumph is where I started doing it.
So when you think about that, I like that phraseology, and I think you should use that of going through that crossroad without self-destructing.
Yeah.
Why do you think when you look at 10 out of 10 people and that go through some type of crossroads, do you think the numbers are 5 of them self-destruct and 5 of them? Because we could go back in life and look at all these successful people, and you will hear stories of, I was homeless, I slept in a car, this happened to me, and I, boom, turned this way. And I went on to do something big, right? And then you see all of these people that go the other way. I mean, what do you think? Is it 5 out of 5 go one direction and one go the other? This is just estimating here, but to me, it's like, that's what I'm fascinated by. Why did you make that decision to not self-destruct? Why did you make that decision? Do you have to hit rock bottom? I'm sure there's various levels to rock bottom.
There's various levels to rock bottom. I think that to answer the question, I don't know the stat. I would say it's probably less than 5.
Yep.
I think, and this is all documented data, but from a biological standpoint, we're programmed to be comfortable.
Yes.
So a change is going to cause some discomfort.
Yep.
When it comes to self-destruction, you never know when it's the last time. So self-destruction is subjective, right? There's different levels to it. That could mean losing your wife or your husband. That could mean losing your kids. That could mean going to jail, losing your job. So what level do you want to get to before you actually want to change?
Yeah.
For many people, when they self-destruct, and you see this in professional sports all the time, where somebody self-destructs on the field, that was the only skill this person had, was to play ball at a high level. They bypass everything else throughout life, and this was their one chance. You self-destruct, you lose that one skill set that you had or that one opportunity. Where do you go from there? So I think you have to really put it into context as far as what can I lose if I self-destruct? Yeah. And what are my opportunities if I do?
Yeah, because people are more motivated by pain than they are potential.
By pain.
And so, but a lot of people probably have some type of behavior that's reckless behavior. Do you think they're not counting the cost? They're not thinking it could happen to them? They're not, like, what is your personal thought about that?
They're not aware.
Okay.
So they're not aware. So it takes, this is why I love speaking on this, is because if I can plant a seed, it's not the first time they hear it. So if they're going through, most time you talk to somebody, they're not at that point where they're ready to change or willing to. But if you can plant the seed, they can say, oh, I remember when Rudy talked about this. While they're going through it, it might help them, make a different decision in real time.
Right.
So they're not aware of why they're doing what they're doing.
Okay.
A lot of it's related to childhood or past experiences. So you see people end up in toxic relationships, into abusive relationships, into these cycle of patterns, addiction, job loss, all these types of things, because they're not aware of what's actually causing them. If you can get to that point, make a different decision in real time, you can start to break that cycle and change.
Yeah. I was a big Covey disciple, and everything was probably Viktor Frankl, between stimulus and response is a space, and in that space lies your ability to choose your response, right? And you can choose a different response. You can choose a different stimuli too, right?
Yes.
If you have a problem drinking and you become sober, I guess you could choose not to place yourself in those situations. Or is it you place yourself in your situations and you just make a different choice?
I think it's a little bit of both. You mentioned Viktor Frankl, so you're attaching meaning to certain things. And so if you're attaching a positive meaning to a negative behavior, that's not good, right? Okay. So when I started doing different things, I attached a different meaning to them, both for a positive and a negative aspect. If I go out and do X, it's going to cause this negative behavior in my life and this negative pattern and this negative feeling. Where if I do this, I attach a different meaning, a different feeling to that. And that's really one of the most powerful emotional and psychological drivers in human biology, is how it makes us feel. Okay. So there's that whole quote from Maya Angelou. People don't remember what you said. Yeah. They'll remember how you made them feel.
Right. So when you got interested in this, were you interested before you had this situation where you end up in the hospital? Were you interested in personal? Were you involved in personal development at all before that, or after that you're like, man, I'm getting my shit together and I'm gonna like, what triggered that in you? And then who did you go study once you made this decision? Like, I'm going to go, because there's a lot of things you could study, right? It's like, I'm going to go study. I studied under Covey. I studied under certain people, and that was deeply shaped and molded my thought patterns and my paradigms and of how I see the world, right? Talk us through that.
So the answer is no. I wasn't really into it. I was more into just what felt good at the time. Okay. So once I actually had a clear head, then I started doing all sorts of personal development things and reading all types of books, from self-help books to business books, Ray Dalio. I love Ryan Holiday and Stoicism. Okay. Bob Iger, Writer of a Lifetime. All these books, Dave Asprey's, Bulletproof, those types of books. And then I went into spiritual. So I got closer to faith, both from a higher power, God standpoint, but also like a spirituality standpoint. Okay. I went through yoga teacher training, learned about meditating, yoga, and how the body holds certain things. And so I got into that world for a little while. So I have a really diverse background. I went and got my master's degree in addiction sciences, went through clinical training, gave therapy to groups, to adolescents, to adults, one-on-one in a group setting, and really kind of figure out why people do what they do, identify that, and then create a different blueprint to change that behavior.
Okay. And so when you started doing that, where did you land? I know today we talked a lot about coaching people through Crossroads, because that affects all 8 billion people on planet Earth. You got this varied background. How did you choose, okay, this is really what I do? I help people through crossroads of their life. A lot of that realization came today when we were talking. More light bulbs went off. So I was doing some of these things inadvertently, whether we're high school kids, family members, or close friends. And I have a wide range of friends, from wealthy to non-wealthy, celebrity to normal people, all these. And I find that I'm the person, given my experience, where we're talking about things, whether it's on a walk or a phone call, they're going through a hard time in their life and they just want to, vent.
and then I give my feedback where they're asking my opinion. So that's where I really came with that. I always wanted to coach and help people. Didn't know exactly how to connect the dots, and that's what we did, a lot today.
So you mentioned today that you do run in some very strong circles of people, some wealthy people. How did you get in those circles? Why did they come to you? How did you end up with those people?
It wasn't intentional.
Okay.
It was simply luck, I guess, or just I think naturally I crossed paths with certain people. I played football at the University of Arizona.
Okay.
So I knew some people from there, coaches and whatnot, who went to the NFL, players who are now coaching or ex-NFL guys. And then some of my other friends, they went there briefly, went on, did something else, came back. And then through my kids' school, they go to a private school in Phoenix. And so I met some of the dads there. So it just kind of happened. It wasn't intentional.
Okay.
It wasn't by design.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you figured out that all those people have something they're going through.
Well, I'm always interested in how people perform at a very high level.
Yeah.
So one of my friends was a NASCAR driver, and I went and talked to him and asked him. He won Daytona, he won NASCAR championship, he's in the Hall of Fame, and I just really want to understand what goes through your mind to drive through a car for 3 hours at 200 miles an hour with zero room for air. You make a mistake, you crash.
Right.
If you crash, you can die.
Right.
So we talked about certain things with that. Friends who played in the NFL or the NBA, I like to understand how their mind works and then simplify that and to give it to most people, because most people won't ever get to that level of success in their field. But we all have that ability to reach more, and our more is different than everybody else. So not comparing one to the other, but we all have a capacity to do a little bit more. What's that for you? What's that for me?
Out of all the people you studied and what you studied, what did you find was like, this was really, you got a concept called enlighten, and you really enlighten means to shine light on darkness. Right?
Yeah.
That's what the word means.
Yeah. So
what did you study that you go, now this is interesting? Like something that most people won't study. Like it hadn't occurred to me to go study, yoga instructing.
Right.
But is there something that you go, now that was interesting? And I think the masses of people struggle with these things, right? It's like, we don't have any coaching in most of these things. Nobody's ever coached us through trauma. Nobody's ever drew a parallel between things we saw as a kid or what we went through as a kid in our formative years that now as adults really affect us or hold us back, right? And so is there something that you thought, now that was interesting. That's a tool that I could use?
I think the most interesting tool that I love is just radical accountability.
Okay.
Because it turns all the blame back on you.
Okay.
And most people don't want to hear this because they want to, it's easier to blame and play that victim card. Now, I'm not minimizing trauma or people who have been true victims, but at the same point, there's two options. There's accountable and growing, or there's victimizing and blaming, and each one has a different result.
Yes. And
I'll tell this story, and I don't mean to offend anybody when I'm saying it, but this is how I was giving therapy to a group of adolescents. And now we were in a treatment center. They were in there 24/7. They were monitored, but they had been there for a little while, different reasons, all alcohol, drug abuse, suicide, and they've had horrific things, done to them, abuse, all types of things. And I told them, I said, look, I'm going to be very honest with you guys. You may not like what I have to say, but this is the truth. And this is what I learned through my own experience and story is you guys don't deserve what you've been through, and I'm sorry for that. But now you're in a spot right now where you can make a decision on where you want the rest of your life to go. Do you want this to be your identity, or do you want to change? Because the world doesn't care about your experience.
Right.
The fact that you have gone through this trauma isn't going to pay your rent. You won't put it on a job application. So what do you want to do? How do you want to define the rest of your life? You guys are now under 18, so you can make a decision on what you want to do the rest of your life. That was pretty, and that goes with anything. You get into a divorce, you get into a relationship, it doesn't work out. What was your part in that?
Yeah.
What was your part in that? Because when you can accept that, it's a lot easier than holding on anger and resentment on somebody else.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking while you were talking, we are where we are today based on every decision we made up until today. Yeah. But we may not like where we are, right? I see a lot of people, I don't say they use trauma to justify their behavior, but somewhere in their psyche, they do things, lash out, act a certain way, and then when you get down to it, it's like, well, I get it. I never had this as a kid. I never had I was abused as a kid, or I was, came from a single family, or whatever the case may be. At what point do you think the person says, okay, I like that radical accountability kicks in? Because I don't think they actually get that radical accountability. Somebody comes along in their life and says what you said to them. Like, look, we can't use that anymore. You're 42 years old. You have these behaviors. You get triggered. You act this way. It's detrimental to everybody around you, including you. At some point, we have to say we are not victims of our past, right? We can't let our past hold our future hostage.
Right.
So I think that's an interesting concept there. When do you think that happens? Is it because somebody else enlightens them to, hey, man, your behavior, or it's like we'll let that go?
If I had the answer for that, I'd be a billionaire.
Yeah.
I think that everybody comes to that realization at different points in their life. So I like to help people when they're at that point, because before that, there's nothing I can really do.
Okay.
And some people never get it, which is very unfortunate and sad. But I don't know what it takes for certain people to get it. I think the more that you can impress on somebody and understanding it like a coach, right? There's 90 players on a college football team, and each one learns differently.
Yep.
So being general to everybody is not going to have it received by everybody. So you have to identify how this person receives information.
Yep.
Now that's the most complicated part, I think, in helping somebody else, is identifying how they're going to receive the information. At the same point, being very blunt and direct and honest with that person without getting their walls up too quick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So part of your coaching is the radical honesty, being honest with them, confronting their behavior, and then showing them a pathway to a better way of handling it.
Right. And that's reciprocated.
Okay.
So I've been talking to people before, and like I don't learn this way. Like, I need you to come at me a little bit different.
Okay.
And I say, okay, well that's good to know. I appreciate that feedback, because now I can retailer this and reframe it.
Okay.
Keep in mind that if that's how you're responding to this, let's dive deeper into that, because most people are going to naturally get defensive, especially somebody who has been successful or in a position of power. They're more likely to get defensive because they're used to calling the shots. They're not used to being told they're wrong or there's something wrong with them. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think sometimes my tendency is probably just to shut down when people push me that hard. It's probably, to shut down and just like, okay, I get it. And it's they may think that is dismissive, but I may like, okay, that's like a standard default that I have.
Right.
Like, I'm just going to shut down. Like, I'm done listening to this.
I think that's common. One of my good friends, we talk about this every single day, and for a certain period, he likes that. But like when his wife was doing it, he was trying to change his diet and she was going too hardcore. He goes, look, I'm trying to do this so it's sustainable. If you just push me too hard, I'm gonna self-destruct and just go off the deep end.
Okay.
And so they're able to have that conversation from a husband and wife standpoint, so they can be better partners to one another. And I think that you got to be able to have those conversations and step back if you're getting, triggered, for lack of a better term. Your walls are going up. Know how to bring your walls down, which is what I teach too. Because once the walls come down, then you can have that conversation. If a wall is up, it's bouncing off. You start spinning in your own head. Nothing's getting in. Nothing's getting out. You bring the wall down. Now we can have a conversation. Now we can move forward. Now we can progress. When
you wrote this book that you got out, that's been out for about 2 years now?
Yeah, about 2 years.
What prompted that? And mental legacy. It's the first time I've heard those two words together. I've heard legacy a lot. I've heard mental toughness. I've heard mental. Right? How did you put those two words together, and why did you do that?
So I come from a very blue collar family. My parents aren't leaving down wealth to us. We never had those conversations. What they did leave me was, grit, determination, work ethic, family, those kind of things. And so as I went through my own experiences in life where I had to overcome adversity and realize the majority of people aren't going to hand down, wealth to their kids. But what they could do is learn emotional and mental skills to overcome adversity, to get through tough times and give that to their child, so their child can get through adversity on their own. Because if they're not able to be self-sufficient as an adult, then we kind of fail as a parent. and this world's getting harder and harder. So
I like that. You know, Pritchett, Dr. Price Pritchett wrote a book called Deep Strengths, and he starts the book off by saying, if you could give your child at 5 years old $100,000,
yeah,
and he keeps going up. If you could give them $1 million, if you give them, or you give them resilience, grit, toughness. Which one would you, if you had to make a choice between giving them $1 million at 5 years old or giving them these what he called deep strengths, right? Then which one would you give them? Okay, and which one would be more beneficial? And I think it's an interesting, because I coached young people,
right,
you know, for a long time, 14 to 18 years old, and we put them through probably some of the toughest things. This was in the late 90s where we were just really tough. You couldn't do these things today.
Oh yeah.
Okay, we brought them in at 4:30 in the morning. I had a full-time strength and conditioning coach in 1999. I was the only head coach in Tennessee that had a full-time strength and conditioning coach for girls.
We had a full pads practice in JUCO in Yuma. It was 122 degrees outside in full pads. You could not do that today.
Yeah. So you know, you kind of came up in that cycle of like in those days, we put kids in a structure, and the structure forced them to get tougher, right? Like they had to get tougher. And so how do we manufacture that emotional toughness in people today?
So it's different today than it was. I think first step is acknowledging that we're not our parents. My kids aren't going to be, go through what I did. But at the same time, there's a balance between, giving financial support and giving mental and emotional support.
Yeah.
So like Jackie Chan has this quote, it's in the book. Mm-hmm. They asked him, are you going to give your wealth to your kids? He says, no. If my kids are competent, they can make their own. Yep. And if they're not, they'll waste my money.
Yep.
But I think you got to understand someone's capacity in life. Yep. And we all have more capacity than we think we do. But given that, not all of us are built equal.
Yeah.
And I don't care what anybody says, we're just not. There's people that have different acumens in business. They can tolerate more, they can bear more, and some can't. So there's a fine line of giving them emotional, mental skills, small bits and pieces. Let them fail a little bit, but let them accomplish and build that confidence up slowly by slowly. Because I think, confidence and determination is like a muscle. So you give it a little bit, accomplish something, and then go from there. If you give it too much, you're just going to shut somebody down. Why
do people discount the emotional intelligence part? So we spend a lot of money on skill, right? We want to skill up, and salespeople go to sales training, and athletes go to skill training. And I remember working with universities. I used to spend a percentage of time on nothing but the internal engineering of the players, and that would be the mind, the heart, and the spirit of the player. Mm-hmm. Skill was the body. Then there was mental components. Then there was emotional components. Then there were spiritual components. You follow me? Mm-hmm. And I spent more time than any other coaches on those internal parts. Then I went to work with universities, and they'd say, we got 20 hours a week with these players. And I'd say, well, how much time do you spend on the internal? And they would say, well, we don't want to waste practice time. That's what the college coaches would tell me. Like, we don't want to waste practice time. Like, we need, and I'm like, well, that's only one dimension of their nature. Right? You're not spending time on the mind, the heart, or the spirit of the player. These are intangibles. Chemistry, trust, buy-in. These are all intangible things, and all you're doing is spending time on the body. So why do you think people diminish these other parts? I don't think they diminish it. Okay. I don't think they have the tools to get to these. Like, a coach is a coach. They teach certain levels. Yeah. They only have so much bandwidth. So they're relying on either somebody else to take care of that and help them out, but they're failing to see that what they're actually trying to teach isn't going to stick if they don't deal with X, Y, and Z first. Right. So we talked about this a little bit. I have some friends, one of my friends, the coach for the Carolina Panthers, and I went and sat with him and asked him some questions. And there was a guy who was on special teams, and he would commit these, fouls and penalties. And so he told the head coach, that, look, this person is costing us more then they're benefiting us. Because sports are all ROI. Yeah. So is corporate world. It's all an ROI. So what they found out was the penalties he was causing was greater than the benefit he was contributing to the team. Mm-hmm. So they cut him. Now you look at sports, it's a very reactional industry, right? Mm-hmm. It's very emotional based. And emotion or lack thereof of regulating that emotion can cost you a game, a championship, or your career.
somebody spits off, or they hit somebody, they get a foul, they get a penalty. That all came from somebody. A coach is trying to sit here and catch a ball better, run a route better. But if you're not doing the first part too, then all that's going to be in vain if that player gets a penalty and gets kicked off the team.
Yeah.
So I think understanding that is going to be more important or as important.
And to your point, I don't think most coaches are equipped. They haven't gone through the proper training themselves.
Well, let's be honest. Most coaches are hotheads themselves, or they have their own, shit to deal with. And that's, people specialize in what they specialize.
Right.
I specialize in helping people at a crossroads in their life and identifying why they're doing what they're doing and changing that and making, better decisions.
Yeah, making a different decision.
Yeah.
When you think about teams, I mean, I go all the way back to Lencioni, who wrote the 5 dysfunctions of teams, and it was absence of trust and fear of conflict, avoidance of accountability, status and ego, lack of commitment. Mm-hmm. Like that was a huge hit, right? I got mad because I thought I hate that I didn't write that book because I was a coach and every team I've ever worked with is a dysfunctional team in some way, right? But nobody really addresses that part. I'm hoping the podcast will shine some light or enlighten people to like, hey, there's other coaches in the world that do certain things that can help your team. Like you don't have to live forever with that dysfunction.
Well, the dysfunction part is beneficial to high-performing athletes and people who make money. Yep. There's always like a chip on their shoulder.
Yeah, exactly.
The problem with that is, in this day and age, is that chip gets exposed. And if you get exposed, there goes your career. Yep. So I love Michael Jordan. I think he's the GOAT. There's all kinds of rumors about Michael Jordan. Mm-hmm. Would he be Michael Jordan in all of our brains in this day and age with social media, camera phones, all these things? I don't know.
Right.
But I do know in this day and age, look at Tiger Woods.
Yep.
One thing that made him great, and then self-destruct, and then now he went to treatment again, that's going to all get exposed. And if you get exposed in this day and age, depending on your brand, it could either, usually hurt you.
Yep.
So...
And I guess one could make the argument, if you go back and really study Tiger Woods, it was probably his father that screwed him up the most. I mean, it made him great.
Yeah.
Right? One of my friends, Bill Faith, was Tiger Woods' roommate when he was 10 or 11 years old, and they played golf together at this school that they were at. And he said that after Tiger played at that age, that they would sit there in the room for 3 or 4 hours, and his dad would just grill him over every shot. And he's like, it was so brutal, right? But a lot of, if you just watch what documentaries or whatever, it's like that created this person, right? It's like Tony Robbins' mother was terrible to him. She poured liquid soap down his throat. She made him quit from everything. But he said, I've heard him say that created this character of Tony Robbins. I wouldn't be Tony Robbins if my mother had been everything I wanted her.
If you're going to blame him for the good, blame him for the bad.
Blame him for the bad, yeah.
You know what I mean?
So should I go back and be mad at him, or should I go back and thank him?
You got to do both. You got to do both. And, I love those stories, and like Michael Jordan, Tiger Woods, Andre Agassi had the same upbringing for tennis. And so what makes people great is different for everybody.
Yeah.
I love Richard Branson because Richard Branson, talks about more of a balance and having fun. And he's not the CEO where he just drives at home. He's not the Steve Jobs type.
Right.
There's room for all of them. You can learn from all of them. It just depends on who you want to be.
Yep. Yeah. Interesting. Well, I really enjoyed spending time with you today, man.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
You got a lot of skills I think are very valuable in the world. You've gone through a lot of unique experiences. I expect big things, and I really do like the mental legacy piece. I think it's not talked about a lot.
Yeah.
I don't think I think parents talk about wanting to hand down some type of legacy to their kids, but what I see today, parents are busy running their lives, right?
We're all busy.
They're busy, right? And they're what they're basically doing is outsourcing the raising of their kids to other people, right? Whoever, school system, coaches, because they're just so freaking busy trying to make it work.
You're trying to make it all. You're trying to provide, and I get that. We have to make a decision on, again, these are our children. Yep. What kind of legacy are we going to leave behind them, and make the time to teach them things, get them. I'm working on a book with this kind of simplified for kids and teens that break down the ideology and the skills in there. But I think it's one of the biggest things. Like, what do you want to leave? What do you want to teach your kids? You have a 3-year-old.
Yeah, 3-year-old, 6-year-old, and a 13.
And what do you want to teach them?
Yeah, I mean, I want to teach them the grit and resilience and the things that I think it really takes to be successful.
Right.
The emotional intelligence things. If you study the top 5 habits of the top 1% of performers, remarkable boldness, intrinsic motivation, great connection skills, ability to lock in and see something through to its conclusion, and grit and resilience.
Okay.
Right? And if you said, okay, these are the 5 attributes I want my kids to have, right? And I think there's more, obviously, but those are kind of, and I got that from Elko, by the way.
Yeah.
Forbes asked Elko to do a study on the top attributes of the top 1% of performers. And I think it's some financial services. But if you really look across the board, those are pretty prevalent in any industry, what I just said. And for a long time, I spoke on those top 5 habits or top 5 attributes of the top 1%. So, this is good, man. Thank you for coming to the Greatness Factory.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Excited about, thank you for letting me be one of your coaches and for helping you. And I'm excited about big things that you got coming up.
I'm excited too.
You're a great student, and great students make great leaders. All right, guys. Big Table Podcast right here at the Greatness Factory. Rudy Montejo. I'm getting better at saying that.
You got it.
I'm getting better at saying that. Okay, Mental Legacy is the book. You need to go out and grab it. Expect some big things from Rudy. He's been through some very unique experiences in his life, and he is uniquely qualified to help you perform at a much higher level. And big shout out for me is don't underestimate the emotional intelligence, the emotional toughness. Don't underestimate if you're at crossroads in life. Rudy coaches people in areas that I don't necessarily coach people on. I coach people in packaging, intellectual property, becoming people of interest, business. He is really an expert at coaching you through the crossroads of your life. And it don't matter how much money you make. You're going to go through a crossroads at some point in life where you're going to make decisions that take you down one path or another path. And I think during that very important time, you need an expert who can guide you through these very big decisions. So it doesn't cost you 10 years of your life, right? Like you can speed up that cycle of transition. So I'm Coach Micheal Burt, live at the Greatness Factory, Level 10 Studio. We believe everybody needs a coach in life, and we believe most people are looking for a seat at a much bigger table.